Hi, I'm Stephanie Law. I am an I don't remember how much it is. 19. Well, can we do that again? I can't remember how many there are. It's been a long time since I thought about the actual numbers. Hi, I'm Stephanie Law. I am a watercolor artist in Oakland, California, illustrator, and I am the designer of the Etchr Mini Palette. I started off with a lot of work in the illustration industry. I was doing a lot of fantasy illustration for games and magazines and book covers because initially that was where I saw people who created my style of art getting their work out into the world. I knew I wasn't, well, at that point, I thought I wasn't a fine artist because I didn't see my kind of art being shown in galleries or being exhibited in those kinds of settings. So I figured I must be an illustrator. And so that's what I did at first. And then over the years, as I started to find my own voice, I started to move away from doing illustration for the purpose of product and instead exploring more of my own ideas and really diving into the kind of art that moved me and that I wanted to create. And I did eventually start working with galleries because things kind of shifted over these 20, 25 years. And it became a venue there that was appreciative of the type of art that I was creating. And so my career kind of changed over time. It moved through a few different phases. So the reason I created the mini palette was a many-fold thing. There were numerous elements that went into the conceptualization and the decision to make this. One of them was that I paint on a generally smaller scale. I do a lot of miniature pieces, anywhere from a couple of inches to, I paint up to 20 by 30 inches, but that's not frequent. Most of the time it's under the 10 by 14-inch range. And so my pieces are not huge, and I don't require large amounts of watercolor at any given time. I don't need a palette that's, this big on my desk. In general, I need most of my colors in a very small contained space, and I want that to be near at hand. I want that to be accessible. I want all my range to be there so that I have the choices available at any given moment. And I don't have to go searching for where's that other giant palette that I had that has this one color that I need. So I wanted to create something that contains that all and that has everything available to me. And I want it to happen in a small space because that was the other thing. I wanted something that I could travel with. I also enjoy working in a journal when I'm traveling. I like to have my paints accessible to me so that I can do these kinds of paintings and drawings when I'm just out and about, and I don't want to, again, lug my giant palette with me. So I wanted to have something small, and that was why this was sort of an ideal shape for me, an ideal shape and size, because it was something that could be right there, right in front of me, and have my entire range of colors there. And as a professional artist who paints every day, it is remarkable how much this little bit of paint can last me. I go for months before I have to refill these usually. And it's great. I don't need huge amounts of paint at any given one moment. The primary thing was I wanted something small and contained because I had big and generous palettes. I have a lot of those, but I did not have something that could contain all that I needed within a very compact space. So that was my primary goal. Secondary was I wanted to have something that was aesthetic because I am an artist and I like cute, pretty things. And so going into this, there was a bit of a designing process in figuring out how do I want to do a layout in a round dish that looks intriguing to people and looks intriguing to me because, as I said, this was initially a project for myself. It was something that I wanted for my own usage. And so dividing it into a hexagonal shape and having these segments where you could then decide to have certain color groups. Like in this, for example, I have the reds, I have my yellow tones and my greens, my blues, my darker blues leading to purples, and then my neutral tones over here in this last triangle. So I wanted something where you could do that kind of design and thinking about it as you laid it out, and so that you could have your colors in a very natural way. Because while you have a palette like this, has a very gridded natural layout where you can just have the colors arranged in a format that makes sense. Thinking about that in a round format was a little bit of a transition. So how are you going to do that? And I thought about color wheels. I thought about how that layout is a very natural one for most artists. And so that was a factor that went into designing the actual aesthetic of the palette and how the wells are laid out within it. So I start with sketches. I started with some designs and figuring out initially how I wanted it to look. And my initial prototypes were rectangular, and eventually I moved into the circular format. And then comes the difficult for me part of how to turn that drawing and that idea into a physical object. For me, I did not have any skills in 3D modeling, and so it was something that I had to pick up and something I had to first research to find a program that was going to have the basic tools needed. So I did that, and it was a bit of a challenge because I had never done any 3D modeling before, and so I had to learn these skills and create that and go through many trial and error iterations of how to make the object that I wanted to create. And when I finally had that, now I have the idea, now I have the model. Now how do I make it a reality? How do I make it a thing? And once that's created, then it's the materials consideration. So what did what you have to do to look and research and figure out what's the right material, what's the right shape and form for this thing to take in real actual terms. And I settled on porcelain, and then that has its own limitations. I have to learn to work with that because it's an organic substance and it shrinks and it changes shape and size as you fire this. And so there's all these different steps that go from the initial concept all the way to the final creation of an object. And then once you have that, how are you going to market it? Initially for me, it was not an issue of marketing because I created it without that initial concept in mind. It was going to be my personal little project, my personal little thing. And it was only because there was so much demand from people who saw it, I realized that I'm actually not the only one who wants this. It was a pleasure actually to be able to bring it into other people's lives and to see it in use and to see other people get excited about it. Etcher approached me shortly after my Kickstarter for the original mini palette, which was the 37 well porcelain dish that I had made in the mixer. And they contacted me and asked if I would like to partner with them for that, as well as for possible future product releases. And it was an exciting opportunity for me because I really want to just focus on my art for the most part, but I enjoy making these things that I want for myself, I want to use for myself. And so having someone say, hey, Stephanie, you want to make some more things that you really like and want to use? And I said, sure, that sounds great. So that was how that happened. And a little bit after we started that partnership, I told them what I really wanted to do is I want to make a secondary palette that has fewer wells, fewer larger wells, but the same size and shape as the original one. So that was the 19 well mini palette that I then designed. And I wanted this myself for use with gouache, but I know that a lot of other artists like it if they don't work in the tiny miniature scale that I do. And so this was another thing that I wanted to create, and I'm looking forward to doing some more products with them. So I'm working on another palette design as well as a little accessory to go along with it. And it's something I'm excited about because it's going back a little bit to some of my earlier prototypes where I was exploring some ideas and things that I wanted to do. But at the time, just working on my own, I didn't have the resources to be able to make it happen in the materials that it needed to be in. And so now that I am working with Etcher, these are possibilities that have been opened, and these are some range of function that I was not able to do before. And one of the projects is something that's going to involve half pans and allows usage of those. And so it is something that I'm very excited about. I love seeing people use them. I love going on Instagram and seeing mini palettes in the wild. That's what I call it when I see them. They're just out there and people are using it and posting their images of their art with it. They're using it and they're enjoying it. And that brings me a lot of joy because I know that they are also finding that use in it that I wanted and needed in the beginning when I made it. So yeah, it's very exciting to see that.